Martin, count it down. 3, 2, 1, action. Welcome everybody to episode 2 of the Frida Cinema's new series, WTF Wednesday, where I, your host, Trevor, the Frida Cinema's programmer, picks a movie, a weird, wild, wacky movie from our ever-expanding streaming library, and you watch that film, and then you're supposed to come here after you watch the film. So if you have not watched this week's film, which is Minor Premise, we'll get that to in a moment, what are you doing here? We're going to be spoiling the movie for you. So the idea is that we watch the movie, we come here, and we'll have the discussion. And every week I have a guest. Last week we had Miguel Rodriguez from Horrible Imaginings Film Festival. If you haven't watched that episode, it's on our YouTube page. Just click out of this and watch that. We did the famous Canucksploitation film, The Pit, which is very, very crazy. This week we're going a little more grounded, a little more hard science fiction. Like I mentioned earlier, this is the debut film from writer-director Eric Schultz. It is called Minor Premise, and it is, again, streaming at thefridacinema.org. But let's get into it. I'm going to introduce our guest now. Infamously a Frida Cinema volunteer, this is Mr. Adam Wagner. How you doing, Adam?
Great, Trevor. How are you doing?
Good. Oh, I like your background. Very good.
Thank you. Yeah, straight from the movie.
It's a really, really great... we're literally 1 minute into the show, and I just had to take a sip of that drink. Don't know why I had to do that. But,
nice. Proud of you.
I like that we are continuing the tradition. Miguel had a picture of the pit behind him. Of course, I have the ultra twisted WTF Wednesday logo.
Nice.
I even turned it around so it looks weird for everybody. How are you doing, Adam?
I'm doing okay. You know, holding on. Hopefully, good times are coming back soon. We'll see. Good news. Yeah. How are you holding up?
Great. Just been staring at the screen all day. I'm either at the drive-ins or I'm at home working on these things. I just finished watching this movie about 5 minutes ago. So reminded me of my college days cramming for an exam. But let's just start here. We're gonna get right into the movie because people do not want to hear about our personal lives.
That's
They
right.
want to hear about us talk about this awesome movie. Minor Premise, according to Letterboxd, I reference Letterboxd a lot. I don't do IMDb anymore because Letterboxd is kind of like the new hip thing. Minor Premise is about, it's attempting to surpass his father's legacy, a reclusive neuroscientist. I'll never try and say that word again.
Martin, can you edit that out?
Yeah, Martin, edit out me messing up the word neuroscientist. Attempting to surpass his father's legacy, a reclusive neuroscientist becomes entangled in his own experiment, pitting 10 fragments of his consciousness against each other. So right there, some really big words in the description of this movie. Right. It's from Circle Collective, who we like to work with at the Frida Cinema. It got into Fantasia Festival, which is a big genre festival in Canada, as well as Sitges, which is probably one of the most prestigious genre festivals in Europe. That's in Spain. It has 91% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 3.2 on Letterboxd, which is not as high, obviously. I'm like I said, I'm leaning more towards the Letterboxd stuff. It's the debut feature film, like I mentioned, from Eric Schultz, who's done a lot of indie producing, but has not written or directed a film yet. So this is his first movie. I noticed that his second credit in 2015 was he was the main producer on the film James White. Have you seen James White or heard of James White?
No, I haven't.
It's a really, really heavy, good drama with Christopher Abbott, who's in like everything now, and Kid Cudi's in it, and Kid Cudi is fantastic.
Okay.
So I was like, oh,
could have used him in this movie.
What's that?
We could have used him in this movie, I think.
I could have used more Kid Cudi for sure, and he just put out an album literally this week, so I can always use more Cudi. I'm gonna start off real quick, Adam. I'm going to read a couple of Letterboxd reviews, and then we'll just get right into your thoughts on the movie. But we're going to start with a good one. Do you like how I integrate Letterboxd so much into this show?
Yeah, well, they're sponsoring us, right?
Yeah, Letterboxd, thanks for sponsoring us, by the way. Second drink of the episode. We are literally 3 minutes into it. This is going well. T. Burgess says... Minor Premise is a major accomplishment. Eric Schultz's directorial debut is a top sci-fi thriller chock full of twists and turns. It's both fun and intellectual, with elements reminding me of Shane Carruth's Primer and Nacho Vigalando's Time Crimes. And then there's Satha Sernanda's performance. Put this guy in everything, this person says. That was that review. And then I'm going to read a bad one. This is basically a shitty version of Possessor, and I'm shocked to see how many people reviewing this movie throw Cronenberg around like it's some kind of flexible adjective. This is not anywhere near The Fly, so please stop kidding yourselves.
And so both these people are established critics, right?
Yes, these one of them I believe took over for Ebert, and the other took over for Roper. I like to read a good one and a bad one, just give us kind of to swing the pendulum. What says you, Adam?
You know, it was interesting enough, but I think I'm leaning more towards the guy who mentioned Cronenberg. It wasn't as much WTF as I wanted it to be, you know, which is not really a negative on the movie, but at the same time, if I have to hit this movie with something, it's the visual language. And I think they kind of touched on it with Primer, but like those heavy close-ups of profiles, pretty much every shot in the movie is that, like they're, you know, working on the fly. I'm not the actual movie The Fly, but I'm just not a fan. That's like the past 10 years or so, all these independent movies just go with that visual language, and it's like, I don't know, dude. It's not like immersing me more into it, you know?
Yeah, I'm really sorry that. So I'm actually with you on this. I was watching the movie and I was like, oh, I'm having Adam on the show, and this one's not. I don't think he's gonna love it. I'm certainly not loving it. I think there's a lot here that's very good, especially for a first film. I think that he did a lot. Again, the Shane Carruth Primer thing is perfect. I saw some people saying it's like early Nolan, which I didn't pick up. I think it's kind of lame to compare any science fiction movie to Nolan or like Villeneuve or something, where it's like, yeah, of course, filmmakers, especially younger or first-time filmmakers, are going to take inspiration from the two most popular directors out there. Like you can't be like, oh, this reminded me of Nolan, but right. Carruth for sure. And then have you seen this year's Possessor?
No, I haven't.
So it definitely reminded me a lot of Possessor, which it can't be knocked for whatsoever because they literally came out the same year. There's no way. But a movie that we both watched recently for our film club with the Thursday Night Volunteers, RIP that film club, but was The Fly, which this reminded me a lot of The Fly as well.
Right. It was almost there. I mean, that's what I like. Like we, back in the Frida days, you guys showed Altered State for WTF. And that
another one, I wrote that down too.
I would throw Cronenberg into describing that because, I mean, that was weird. You know, it looked like duct tape skin kind of costumes and whatever.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted from this. And, you know, when he first boots up the machine, or if you even read the premise of this movie that says like an experiment that goes wrong, you're thinking like, okay, this is where it's going to get crazy. What's going to happen? I don't know. And then it just ends up becoming like art house Split for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I literally wrote down Altered States and Split because that's what it. She even says like, oh, like DID, and I'm like, yeah, this is like, okay, so it's like really wearing all of its influences on its shoulder, which I think for a first-time film, I think that's fine. I think whatever Eric Schultz does next, I want to see it be more original, but I really felt like I was watching a movie that was just a mishmash of movies that he really liked. I'm a big fan of Split, but my big problem with this movie, you were talking about the visual language. I thought that they did a fine job. Like we can just get into spoilers, obviously, because people who are watching this have seen it. When you set up stuff like, section, by the way, were you surprised this movie wasn't called Section 8?
Yeah, I guess so. I would have wanted to.
They kept saying it. They were like, Section 8, what is Section 8? And I'm just like, yeah, I think they probably wanted to call it that, but maybe it was too similar to something that already existed. My big problem with the movie was I just found the lead, although he was the performance was good, I found him crazy unlikable. Like, could not have been more unlikable.
Interesting. Okay. I think it was the other way around for me. I think that like if anyone else that you put like just some standard indie white guy in that position, it wouldn't have had any bounce to it, but this guy brought bounce to that character, at least for me. I think the performance was kind of hit or miss. He was like nailing it sometimes, but then other times you could chalk that up to the personality. But I liked him. I liked that guy right here.
I thought the most interesting thing about him was like even in the IMDb description of it is like they describe him as an Indian American. Like they put that kind of built-in pressure that he had to follow in his dad's footsteps to be as good as his dad.
Right.
And I like how they specifically were like, he's an Indian American and he needs to live up to his dad's legacy. I was like, okay, I get that very right. And so he's like high strung all the time. But like the reason I think we like, or not we, I mean the general like public throughout time really likes The Fly is because of how likable Goldblum is, even though he is a full weirdo in that movie. I was just a little turned off from this, but You're right. Actually, I'll just call myself out, I guess. I love the movie Whiplash, but Miles Teller is an asshole throughout the entire film Whiplash, and he's a perfectionist just like this dude. So what was wrong with, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, good point. Very good point.
Thank you. I think, if to give some credit to the movie, the structure, I mean, well, this isn't going to give it credit. The structure of like the story and the pacing and everything was a little all over. You don't really get it sucked in until
Mhm.
you know that he's like in different intervals and that girl's working with him and they're working together and like, okay, finally I'm in it. That happens way too late. But there are a lot of editing moments like going back and forth that I think work really well with the music and everything. I was impressed just watching that first one with when he's like doing that class instruction, but also it's going back in time where he's like trying to figure out what's going on.
Mhm.
I didn't know what was going on, but it worked. I thought the flow of that movie worked, and I wish the story was stronger. Like it did allude to Section 8, like this was going to be something scary or
Yeah.
something WTF, and it wasn't. It was psychotic. All right, cool.
Yeah, I guess the conversation needs to come around to for a WTF Wednesday movie. You're right; it wasn't WTF enough. It just kind of was like a art house split is a great way to put it, or even like art. You can't say art house primer because primer is an art house film, but it was like more of a drama than I was expecting, especially because the poster would lead you to believe it's like this mind melter.
Absolutely. Yeah, it looks freaking. So I think we were both thinking like, yeah, this looks cool. Experiment gone wrong, throw it in there.
I guess we can't really fault the movie for not being what we wanted it to be, I suppose.
Right, exactly.
But you're
Yeah.
right. Give the movie some credit. There was a lot of good stuff in it. I thought the lead actress was great. I thought she was very, very good.
Right.
And I do love when a movie like puts a little bit. Have you seen the film, the original '70s, The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, by any chance?
No.
And that's a movie that like establishes like a little quirk in the beginning of a character that the very last shot of the film, the quirk is revealed and you're like, oh, it's that guy. I liked the whole like, oh, the psychotic version of me picked back up smoking, and then you're like, oh, I guarantee that comes back in at the end. And even though you know it's going to, it is really, really satisfying.
Right, yeah. And you know that they loved shooting that last scene, just really casual, far away, smoking a cigarette.
So
They were all in. But there's something after that, and I didn't get a chance to check it out, but it like flashes something on screen right after that for just a second. And it looked like it looked in the same vein as like what all his memories look like. It was kind of like that blown out, oversaturated style.
yeah. Oh, okay, cool.
I don't know if it's something like we should be investigating or just like a weird bookend.
Well, that was another interesting thing that they did in this movie was that cutting to that like I'm not even going to pretend to say what you would think it would be, but like the cells kind of moving, and then towards the end how they kept getting slower and darker. It actually made me really uncomfortable. Where I was like, oh, I kind of feel his brain matter like slowly. I don't know. I actually really liked that. And again, that's all practical effects and very effective. So I'm not going to sit here and say that I didn't find the film to be good by any like for example, 91% on Rotten Tomatoes. People who watch this movie can objectively say it's very well done in certain aspects, but I'm with you overall. Just needed more WTF factor.
And I think this might be a film where if we watched it again, knowing what was going to happen and what's going on in the beginning,
Yeah,
it might be more enjoyable. I'm sure there's a lot of dedication to the idea of his blackouts and what's happening between them, but it just took too long to get there.
I thought this movie was going to be about like a coal miner. I didn't. I'll be honest. I didn't watch the movie.
Okay. Yeah.
But how were the mining scenes like in the mine?
They were major.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I figured. I figured it was like a zoo. I can't. Why can't I think of like a miner movie? The coal miner's daughter, or like I don't. What came to mind is Zoolander. There's a scene in a mine in Zoolander.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's probably the most popular mine scene.
There's like an entire movie made about like those Argentinian miners who got caught like 5 years ago in that horrible landslide. And I'm just like, yeah, the most famous mining scene is from I think like Antonio Banderas is in that movie. Okay, well, we keep things real short and punchy here. I want to thank you for coming on the show and talking about Minor Premise. Do you have anything you'd like to plug before we get out of here?
No, but I actually would like to get your letterbox review, stars wise? What would you put on this movie?
I do not put stars on my letterbox reviews.
Excuse me. All right, that's fair.
I don't. And I know a lot of people who don't do that, but those people also like just mostly are there to put like quippy. I really appreciate people who are like on Letterboxd kind of make jokes, like pithy jokes, like Twitter, and then they don't assign stars to the movie. I appreciate that because like they're not affecting the movie's weight on the scale.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and I feel like.
What would you give Letterboxd, sponsored by Letterboxd, stars for this film?
Oh yeah, I never give stars on my letterbox reviews. You know,
Yeah.
I don't want to mess up the weight.
Do you want to plug your Letterboxd?
I don't have a letterbox actually.
That's crazy.
Makes my joke a true statement.
Yeah.
But this was good. You know, I mean, I loved WTF Wednesdays were one of my favorite things at the Frida, even though it didn't last too long because of the virus.
Yeah.
Altered State and The Brood were two of the ones that I went to go see. And it was just, it's, you know, you want to have one of those days at your local art house theater. You know, you want to have like, all right, I just show me something that I want to throw up at.
Yeah.
And that's what usually comes with. And though this wasn't quite there, there were some cool things to think about it. And I did enjoy, I'm glad I watched it for sure, especially as like someone who likes to make movies. And we'll see what comes up in 2 weeks.
That was another really interesting thing that you just brought up there before we get into your plugs, is that the movie, I do love a first feature like this that literally I would never go as far as to be like, I could make this, but like, I could make this. You know what I mean? I couldn't make this, but I could make this. Like my buddy Zishan makes hard science fiction. Like his last short film, Prefigured. Like this reminded me of it so much. And no disrespect to Eric Schultz or anything, but I was like, if my buddy Zishan got his hands on this script and just kind of stripped away some of the stuff and made it more visceral, like I'd be like, this movie would really rock. But as it stands, 3.2 on Letterboxd, 91% on Rotten Tomatoes. Eric Schultz does not need our opinion on this movie, but I know the viewer at home just watched it. We hope you enjoyed it. If not, we hope you enjoyed this discussion. Adam, let's plugs, Twitter, Instagram. What do you got?
I have a Instagram that I post movies that I watch called Projector Fuel. Nice. If you want to check that out, I haven't posted in a while, but that's because, you know, times are a little rough right now. We're going to get back to it. That's pretty much it. One last question to leave you with here. Off the top of your head, how much do you think this movie costs to make?
I'm usually very, very good at this. Do you know the answer to this question?
I have no idea.
This movie costs, I'm going to guess, $550K.
Nice. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, there's mainly 3 actors throughout the whole thing. They got this chair, which probably cost them a lot.
Yeah, I mean, if it was lower than that, I would be like, hey, good for you. But $550K to make a feature nowadays, and a feature that, again, got into Fantasia, got into Sitges. When you get into Fantasia, when you get into Sitges, that's your world premiere. You get into Fantasia, that's your North American premiere. And then I believe Circle Collective picked it up, so it didn't need to go to any more festivals. But I have a feeling it would have gone to a lot of the major ones.
Nice. What do we want to see from Shane next, then?
You called him Shane.
What's his name?
You're thinking of Shane Carruth. This is Eric Schultz.
Eric Schultz. Martin, edit that out.
Yeah, edit out him calling him Shane Carruth. So Shane Carruth went from Primer to Upstream Color, but it took like 9 years, I think, in between those movies. I want to see something much sooner from Eric Schultz. And like I mentioned earlier, I want to see something. I mean, I'm always going to lean towards genre, and we'll get to that in a moment. But I want him to go from hard sci-fi to sci-fi horror. Just make the jump. It's a lateral jump. I want something like you mentioned earlier, more intense. I don't want him to go body horror though, because if he's got to get that stank of Cronenberg off of him, then I don't know. We'll see. I wouldn't be. You know what I want to see from this young man? I want to see a found footage horror movie dealing with the fallout of a pandemic. Not a zombie movie, but like a kind of like an REC, a wreck movie. That's what I want to see from this gentleman.
Hello, Eric Schultz.
Yeah.
Listen to this.
Hollywood's on the phone. What do you want to see? What do you want to see from the sophomore feature from Eric Schultz?
Well, you said you don't want to do body horror, but I would love to see if he's capable of hitting a WTF Wednesday stream in the future. You know what I mean?
That's true.
Because he kind of touches on that with the practical effects of the brain and everything. And I feel like, well, you know, you tighten up your story and then just go wild, man. I know you can do it.
I know he can do it too. And he is watching this. So thank you, Mr. Schultz, for watching WTF Wednesday.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you, Adam, for coming on the show. Please follow us at the Frida Cinema. Again, if you've made it all the way into this episode and you don't know about the fridacinema.org and our streaming library, our executive director, Logan, and our editor here, Martin, they're always expanding that library. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's either new releases or we just put like the 7 Wong Kar-wai movies on there from Janus. Or check out a drive-in. We're doing really cool drive-in events all over Orange County. So again, check those out. Follow me at Trevor Dills on Instagram and Twitter. Also at Ghost Party Pics on Instagram and Twitter. I will say that in the future, I'm hoping Adam and myself are starting a podcast called Ghost Party Radio. So this is the first place that's ever been announced. That'll be an exploration into genre films. I want to talk genre films. We're going to spin a wheel. There's 100 genres on the wheel. It's going to land on a genre. We're going to do a month or 2 of programming on that genre. We're going to talk about what makes that genre great, what makes that genre bad, blah, 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 blah. We're going to drop movies. It's definitely for the film nerds out in there, in the audience. Is there anything you want to say about that, Adam?
First guest, Eric Schultz, coming on the show.
Honestly, yeah. Like, why? I mean, that's like, in this new world, like zooming people in, like getting good guests is not that hard, which just blows my mind why you're the second guest on this show. Like I could have gotten anybody.
Yeah, what a bummer. Yeah, I think I'm pretty excited for that show just because it's going to inspire me to watch more movies, which I hope, is kind of the purpose of the show, get people to watch more unique things and just talk about that. We have a series called WTF Fridays that we're going to be hosting.
Yeah, we're just gonna hack this through. No, and that's what I love about the WTF Wednesdays thing and the Fridas, how accessible all the Fridas. These are brand new movies that the Fridas are playing, or we're doing cool repertory stuff. But kind of sitting down and watching, like I would have watched a movie like Minor Premise in any other year, like a lower budget movie that had a little bit of buzz off the festival circuit. But this year it's been really, really hard. So I love the idea of just kind of pushing a movie like this. I know we didn't love it, but I do think it's an interesting watch for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I would not have watched this movie, and the fact that I did here, is great. I want to do more of that, more pushing.
Cool. Well, good luck in your exploration of cinema. I know you're not really a big film guy, so yeah. Thanks again for having
Primer. I hardly know her.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it, and best of luck in the future. We'll see how 2021 goes for you.
Thank you, Trevor. See you soon.
All right. See you. Bye, everybody.